Okay, let's start because two of you have joined. Now, yeah, Padmendra also have joined right now. So, very good morning to you. And today is basically last day of our session. Yeah, and as we also already discussed, what our plan is like to continue some more questions today, and then we'll wind it up accordingly. And then what you have to do is basically in January now they have set the examination dates also. We have almost like 2 months from if you take today onwards. So we have ample time to go through what we have done, and so you can start from then. Like you can start with some past papers and go back to the theory and in the detailed theory notes as and when as applicable, right? Because don't lose the momentum, and since that we have come to a level that you have to continue from that point onwards, at least daily or even every 2 days, that you need to brush up what you have done and continue the work accordingly. So we'll start with MCQ paper 2019 September. So what we can do is like together we can discuss the the questions, since that we have almost a set of answers there. The first question is basically they're asking objective of development banks. Now they say four answers: provide long-term loans, long-term debt capital, provide credit facilities, long-term investment, funds for infrastructure. I think A, C, D both. I mean, all three answers are correct, but most correct answer could be B, where development banks, they provide debt capital for the corporate and SMEs. So basically, they talk about actually the part of the question is missing. Just hold on, I will see whether I can bring the paper and see. Right. It's 2019. It basically says provide long-term debt capital for the corporate and SME sectors. So that might be the most relevant answer. The others are also correct: term loans, credit facilities, kind of. But here it is more comprehensive and elaborate. So we go with the answer B. Second one, role of a project appraisal officer in a development bank or a commercial bank. Basically, they're asking about credit officer's role. So answer goes as C. Examine the feasibility and viability of the project and make recommendation. So if you take the other two, project, analyze the factors, evaluate and recommend great proposal, project report, underwrite and create and make recommendation. Last one, meet the client, visit the project and evaluate it. So all again correct, but answer C says it basically evaluate the project viability or feasibility, which include all other activities we described under A, B, and C. So that the most correct answer there could be C. Then a firm specialized in financing young startup companies. So finance, capital creation, small business company, venture capital, because we know the venture capital is like mainly to the startup business financing. So there again, answer could be C. Here, one of the following does not fall under qualitative forecasting method. So Delphi, judgmental, market research, basically it's like moving average method is something is more mathematical kind of thing. So that's why they go with that answer. Delphi judgmental market research are more qualitative, right? The moving averages is basically a number sort of thing. So that's why they have selected. So actually we have not, exposed to this type of question and the theory, but they have, put this kind of a question. But if it is coming again, but keep an eye on that, where there are, couple of, forecasting methods, right? But the moving average method is basically relevant, or I mean, more or less like quantitative type, like number exercise. So that's why he has selected the answer C. Then question number 5, effective working capital management in a business organization is reflected through A, sufficient level of liquidity, optimal level of stocks, debtors, no debtors, optimal level of stocks, debtors and creditors. So the last answer is adequate liquidity, operational efficiency, and increased profit. So if you take A, also partly correct, level of liquidity. B, anyway not correct, because no debtors is not exactly the relevancy to the effective working capital. But third also, stock, debtor, creditor, also it's basically talks about a liquidity level. But when you go to the fourth one, it talks about liquidity, efficiency, and it also talks about the support towards the profit. So if you see the all 4 answers, most correct answer could be D. So remember, now when you see all the previous questions also, now there are chances examiner would give us a couple of answers, but you need to pick and choose most appropriate and relevant answer. So then just see and don't underline kind of thing, because there may be a better answer to answer than that. So just go through all 4 answers and select what is most correct or the best one. That's how we need to address the MCQ, the way that you need to address MCQs. As I told you in a couple of times, MCQs don't select as your first question, right? So you try it out some other question in case study level, like in essay type answers questions, and then come back to the answers on select the answers on select the questions on MCQ, right? Then glass bottle manufacturer, fixed cost of 500,000, selling price 75, variable cost 50. Now we need to compute the break even of the business. The answer is given as 1.5 million. Can anybody try it out and see is it correct? Just do it and see. What is break even sales? See whether the 1.5 million is correct. What is the break-even sales? It's 1.5 million is correct. Please,
units are 20,000, sir.
How many units?
20,000 into
right.
75 selling price
is 1.5 million, right? So is others also getting that? Padmendra, Prishanta, Taruka?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Udita?
500,000 divided by 25.
Yeah, 500 divided by 25, we get 20,000 units. That into 75 will be the break-even sales. Udita is correct? Padmendra, Prashanta?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So we'll move
Yes.
on. Okay. The next question is financial literacy will help the SME sector. So this actually come in several, different ways, right? The financial literacy will help the SME sector, like microfinancing sector also. This could be important. Even the SME sector also, this could be important, right? The financial literacy will help. One is protect rural businessmen from aggressive money lenders who may exploit the borrower's lack of financial knowledge. That's one. Because when you tell what is doable, what is not doable, and what exactly the financial skills of required to run a business, that will help businesses, businessmen and women not to go after money lenders, because then they know they can go to now establish financial institutions and get whatever their things done. One. Number two, create value in the business by optimizing decisions on capital investment, working capital, borrowings, pricing, etc. Now they can add value to the business, but knowing the financial discipline, financial literacy, financial, the techniques, they can add value to their businesses on areas on, let's say, investment, working capital management, borrowing from banks, pricing, costing. There are so many things that they can do if they know exactly what to do, right? In a correct, proper financial, the methods. Last one, safeguard the profitable SMEs which could later collapse due to cash flow problems. So safeguard the profitable SMEs which could later collapse due to cash flow problems, because now when you run into problems, or when you are running in good, if you are not following proper financial norms or the techniques, then later you can collapse. Like, let's say, sometimes some people may understand, they say that we are generating profits, we are generating turnover, and then all turnover is my profit. Right? All turnover is that I can take as drawing. So that's a kind of myth they might have. But they don't know that they need to keep something for working capital, something for investment, something for financial, this thing. So they don't know sometimes. And then very profitable businesses, they might come, to collapse very soon, because they don't know how to manage the financials within the business like that. So these are some of the things that we can take. At least if you can mention 2 points out of 3, so that will adequate to get the 2 marks for the answer. So financial literacy we learned earlier also. It depends on areas, like it could be important for SMEs, could be important for corporate, it could be important for micro entrepreneurs also, right? There are several the segments, the applicable the entrepreneurs in the financial sector, right? So in the banking. Then last, the question number 8 says, debt service cover is considered by banks as a key indicator of debt service capacity in lending, right? So it basically talks about debt service ratio. Like, we know in a bank, when we financing, and then we depend on future cash flows, future profitability. So the repayment should come from the future generated cash. And then from today, what we are trying to understand is, using this debt service capacity or debt service ratio or the interest cover ratio, you see whether the company can service the future debts without any problem. That's what generally debt service ratio is, right? So basically how we compute the debt service ratio is, debt service ratio is net profit after tax divided by capital and interest for the particular year. That's how we compute it. So then we compute that using the future, forecasted cash flows, and see whether the company is maintaining adequate debt service cover ratio. So generally we say it's 1.5 million and 1.5 times and above. Higher is also very much appreciated, but means that if it is maintained at higher levels, that the company can service without a problem, right? NPV considers the net cash flow of the project during the period, recognize how many times the loan repayment is sufficiently covers by the next cash flow, calculated from the project cash flow but not from the past financials, practical sense of repayment ability of the borrowers, simple to understand, simple to calculate and easy to understand also. These are some of the things that we can say to support DSCR, right? Because it gives you an understanding the firm's debt servicing capacity based on future cash flows. What is debt service capacity? It includes both interest and capital. But remember, we are doing this for futuristic orientation, not the past financial, based on the past financial. Yes, we also can compute based on the past financials. It doesn't have a value for the future, because now today you approve a loan, the client has to pay the loan in future. Futuristic orientation. Future generated cash flows are required to pay your debts. We today calculate based on the future cash flows whether the company or the entrepreneur is having adequate debt service capacity, debt service ratio for future financial commitments. So that's what all about debt service cover ratio. Then ask a question about what are the functions of development banks, right? What are the functions of development banks? Basically, it talks about to promote and develop small-scale industries, right? So when you talk about the future, the development bank's functions, it specifically speaks about the following, that is, develop small-scale industries, housing sector, large-scale like infrastructure project, agri-rural, foreign, import-export financing. It also support to SIC businesses, right? This basically talks about the functions of development bank. Now if you know, a couple of weeks before, we studied like what are the activities coming under development banks. So it's mainly it's asking in a different way, maybe infrastructure development, SME development, import-export, housing, right, agriculture. There are so many activities under that. So here he's asking a functions as a small, like the question, which is more or less in a write-up, right? Earlier it's like underlined questions, but now it is in a you need to open-ended question. So you need to write questions support to and answer support to that. Then last one, technical feasibility. Actually, now the answer says it's like overall feasibility, what the answer he has given. But when you say the technical feasibility is what I feel is like it's more or less the technical ability, right? Now, whether the company is having adequate technical capability to run the project without any interruption. When you say technical capability, it could be with the people, process, and programs like systems, and all that to be adequately in line, adequately supported to run the project successfully. That's how I feel. But in terms of examiner, that he has put it the technical feasibility in a different way. It basically talks about overall, like analysis, evaluation of project following success factors as a term, the likelihood of completing the project successfully. That also correct more or less what he might say about, in a marketing, technical, operational, legal, and economic, like all feasibilities, except financials. Possibly he might thinking like, that's like, the technical nature of this part, because otherwise when you say marketing, there's a marketing nature involved that. When you say market feasibility, there's no link to the technical feasibility, but maybe successful implementation of these might be help technically to support the project. That may be the examiner's perspective, but I think most appropriate answer could be, when you say technical feasibility, it could be the the overall capability of the technical items in the project. Technical item could be people, process, maybe product, and the production methodologies, those of things. If you remember, we discussed about technical feasibility, and there are a couple of checklists, like 10-15 checklists we learn. So that's what generally should be the answer, but not this one, I suppose. But anyway, the examiner has given this, but actually arguably that we have given marks for the students who have given more technical related answer. So that could be the very much correct answer, but here it could be overall project feasibility. This is correct then, including financials to come here. Like in overall, yes, the financial, but the feasibility in the sense that you should be able to generate adequate cash flows by achieving all those feasibilities in order to make a kind of a project viable one. So that's what overall. But that this answer also most relevant to overall perspective, not relevant to like technical. But I prefer you go the direct or maybe the technical feasibility answer which we have learned in the class. Any questions on this paper? That is
right. Yeah, the answer will can we get the same amount of the marks?
Actually, last time, in this time, we have given the marks for both, right? Because now here actually many students have written the technical feasibility answer, not this one actually is overall feasibility. So we gave the marks to the whatever both answers, because the examiner came up with this and students came up with a different answer. But I suggest, like when you say the marketing feasibility, you need to talk about only marketing. Financial feasibility, you need to talk about the financial. Or they might ask about what are the areas that you need to check on financial feasibility. Then you have to write whatever the items we discuss under that financial feasibility, right? Not like a general one.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. I think we have discussed this one, right? Is it or not? Not sure. Have we done this previously? Not sure. No, no. Okay. We'll go quickly. It's again together. Answer the following multiple questions by selecting most suitable answer from the 4 answers given for each question, right? There, what he has asked is when you say retail banking, so you can drop that answer. So A, B, you can drop it. When you go to the B, again, it has some commercial lending, so you can drop that. So then you have answer C, project, merchant banking, working capital, financial advisory. Now, actually, there may be some other activities also in development banking, what we have learned just before and even previous weeks. But here, there are so many activities, but based on the answer, you have to see what is the most relevant answer. A, B, and D have different inputs, like different answers, where retail banking is not part of the development banking. It's another function of a bank. So A, D you can disregard. Even in a B, you see commercial lending. Commercial banking also not coming under the development banking activity. It's another arm of in a bank's activity. So answer is C. which is the most correct statement for a project appraisal and development banking, calculate the repayment capacity, examination of creditworthiness in a project, application of appraisal techniques to determine the feasibility of the project, examine the viability of the project. Like there again, B is correct, C is correct, D is correct. So viability of the project, D partly correct. Appraisal techniques to determine the feasibility of the project, that's also a bit of again correct. But when come to the B, examination of the creditworthiness in a project for lending is something where how suitable the project is for financing. That's what B says. But when you say C and D, the outcome of the C and D is B, right? If you say creditworthiness of individual borrower, you try to do through 6 Cs or 5 Cs or whatever, right? Similarly, C and D is trying to do it through different techniques or whatever, through viability, feasibility, try to find the project is suitable for funding. The project is okay for financing. So that is most explained under B, examination of the creditworthiness in a project for lending. So that's why sometimes when you see the question, the answer C also correct, D also correct, right? But most appropriate answer could be B. Hence, like go through very carefully, right? And then decide what is most appropriate answer for the kind of a when you do kind of a question. Then third one, a profitability index of 0.75 per project means that the present value of benefits is 75 greater than the project cost. The project's NPV is greater than 0. The project returns 75 cents in present value for each. Sorry. Returns 75 cents in present value for each current rupee invested. The payback period is less than 1 year. So basically, there you can select A, B, C, D. Answer is C, where the project returns 75 cents in present value for each current rupee invested. For each 1 rupee, right, it gives 75 cents. That's what this 75% or 0.75 in project means, right? So each 1 rupee, 0.75, right? What is a pre-feasibility study in project development? So study done by bank to examine the feasibility of the project, study done by the promoter, study done by the government, study done by the promoter to examine the feasibility of the project in advance. So if you say that A is correct, B and C anyway, B is also correct, right? Sorry, A is not correct, C is not correct because it's done by a promoter. So B correct, promoter feasibility. D, promoter feasibility in advance. Like when you say free feasibility, we try to do it in advance. Feasibility is done subsequently. Like we can do free feasibility study and also we can do feasibility study. The feasibility study is basically in detail discuss about this project feasibility items, each area like financial to economic to and all that. In a free feasibility, we try to do not very much detail, but in a very macro level, whether this is doable or not. So here in advance work comes, then that would be the most correct answer, right? So answer is basically D, study done by the promoter to examine the feasibility of a project in advance. So that would be the answer. If a company invests in 400 million in a new project and the project produces a positive cash flow of 80 million, the payback period is, right, obviously 5, right? I don't think it's a difficult question. 400, 80 per annum. So initial capital of 400 could be recovered in 5 years. Anybody has an issue on that? If anything, please let me know. Then question number 6. Profit after tax 300, depreciation 50, interest paid is 50, tax 15, and then capital repayment is 100. What is the debt service cover ratio? See whether that you can compute that, and are you getting the same answer like examiner? Generally, it's like profit before interest, tax, depreciation, and divide by capital and interest. But in Sri Lanka, we are pay taxes and we get the rest of the cash flow for debt service cover ratio. Means what is the understanding is how much we are generating as cash to repay my debts. Debts in the sense interest and capital. How much I am generating. So that's what generally we do, right? So here how obviously we can understand the yearly capital and interest. That is 50 million interest, capital 100. So 150 will be that the amount that you need to pay during the year. Then in order to pay that, what is the cash I have available, cash flow, the profit I am having? Is it 300 million or is it 300 plus depreciation plus interest, or how much?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
When you say in Sri Lanka the tax is not
Allowed.
getting allowed, so when we are taking do a sum like this, do we need to adapt the tax or not?
No, we need not to adapt tax because it's a must. But rest of the expenses we can add. Depreciation is a non-cash flow, so you can add back. Interest, you have to add back because we are trying to see what is our debt service capacity before interest, no. Before interest payment, before capital payment, we need to see what is my capacity. So that is the equation we discuss in the class is profit before tax, interest, and depreciation. But in Sri Lanka, we can't take profit before tax. We need to take profit after tax because mandatory we need to pay taxes. It means tax need not to add back if you have been given the profit after tax. But rest of the expenses like depreciation, amortization, interest, you have to add back. Then only you get the figure which is available, the profit available to service your debt. What is that figure? What is that amount?
400 million.
400 million. Taruka, you are getting that, the 400 million?
Yes, sir.
Rubini, and you are also? Ravini?
Yes, sir.
Right. So then 400 million divided by 150 will give the answer 2.66. So sometimes that, read the question, see what exactly they are. Especially if you refer textbooks, you don't have this issue. It says profit before all expenses, interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, divide by capital and interest for the particular year. But in Sri Lanka, you have to deduct tax from that account if you take operating profit, right? If you take net profit, no issue, but you have to add back depreciation, interest, and amortization, if any. Right? Please keep that in mind. If you have still any doubt, please let me know. Then again, a bit of same question is asking, again, under development banking, concept? What are the areas? What are we discussing under development banking? Industrial, agri, import, export, housing, right? So there are other answers are there, but most relevant answer is this one, because when you say project development, you can't set aside the project and take other, because industry, agri, import, export, and housing are most relevant answers. But the difference between the A and D is they include project. The project is, not exactly understood by what projects. Maybe industrial project, agri project, housing project, import export project. So that's why we disregard the word project development. A and D we disregard. When come to the C, it talks about infrastructure development again. But when you say infrastructure, again within that there may be so many industrial projects within that, or maybe agri related also. That's again, it's a very common word. So that's why we disregard that, because there is a much better answer in B, that is industrial, like industries, agri, import export, and housing. So that's why we opt to select answer B. Then question number 8. What are the key advantages of NPV in project lending? So it's something what we learn under the advantages and disadvantages of project lending. So we have selected the NPV, right, as one of the best method. So what are the features, or what are the advantage of NPV? That is, recognize the importance of time value of money. That's one. Then cash flow over the lifespan of the project is considered. Throughout we consider. Profitability and risk of the projects are given high priority. So NPV helps maximizing the firm's value. Cost of capital is considered, because here like discounting factor is considered. That's what I say. So here these are some of the things are advantage of NPV calculation. So he's asking that question, right? So throughout cash flows, time value of money, it talks about the survival or the profitability perspective, discounting factor, cost of capital is being used, because sometimes the owners has the cost of capital. That will be taken into account when you are discounting cash flows. Those are some of the, the advantages of NPV computation. Then 2 multilateral development banks, right, which support Sri Lanka in financing development aspects, like World Bank, ADB, European Investment Bank, International Fund for Agri Development, right, German like KfW Bank, JBIC, Japan Bank. So there are so many things. So we discussed in like sources of funding in section 2, right? So you can take whatever tool for this type of answer. Financial viability in project financing, because earlier they talks about technical viability. That actually was not very correct. But here when you say financial viability, is more or less is very clear here. Project earnings is sufficient cover to some financial expenses like fixed cost, operating maintenance cost, repayment of loan, adequate return on investment. So this is more or less that what we look into in the financial perspective, right? In financial perspective, we try to see whether the company is doing well in terms of financial aspects. What are the financial aspects? Adequate profitability, adequate return to company, shareholders, whether the company can pay off interest and capital, whether the company is generating adequate cash to manage day-to-day expenses, and finally on the to cover the fixed cost, because to cover the fixed cost you need to, we talk about break even. So from that onwards, break even, then you try to do further profitability, like initially variable cost, then fixed cost, then profitability, then like about return to shareholders. So that's what exactly what we expect from the project. So when you say financial feasibility or financial viability is basically that talks about, you know, fixed cost, operating maintenance cost, repayment of loans, and the adequate return on investment. So that's generally how and it could be. I think any questions on that? I think we have done this question, and this is the latest one. We did it this question if January 2021 MCQs actually we have discussed, right? You also can go through it later. Since we have done this question on MCQ, shall we move to the rest of the questions, right? So that we can have an you know, idea on what exactly was the last year paper, and then there is the most in most cases that we can see there is a highly relevant relevancy on this year as well. So there may be a chance of, you know, the questions being set in line with last 2 or 3 year paper like 2018, 19, and because that 21 paper actually we didn't have any this thing on 2020. This is actually set on 21 January. So we could have the similar thing in a similar type of questions could come here, right? Because the part 2, the question number 2 says, knowledge of products in banks and financial institutions is vital to map them according to the finance requirements of projects and businesses. Discuss the nature of following products and its benefits to customers in project or business financing. So here we are supposed to discuss the nature and benefits, right, to customers in project or business financing. Like, so it's very open question. So we need to discuss these 4 products in relation to project or business financing, some features and the benefits. Like how we have learned earlier is when we try to write a short note, you need to have some examination or the answer plan. I have told you, like if you take say product, what you have to write is maybe first one could be introduction or definition 1, or maybe line 2 could be features, some basic, you know, the highlights of the product. 3 could be advantages and disadvantage. Number 4 could be risk mitigants. Number 5 could be some kind of illustration example if it is, or maybe 6, 7, 8 also, like maybe target market, customer base, right? So like that, maybe the purpose of the particular product. So like that, you can have it like so many items. But on that basis, you need to memorize these products as well. Examiner here is asking nature and the benefits. So it's very easy for us to write some of the benefits and some of the features of the products. But keep in eye to have a relevancy to project or business financing. Right. Hope you have understood the question before answering. Any difficulty in understanding the question? Okay. Then we will see the answers. This is how they talk about. Yeah. First up. Syndication loan is one that is provided by a group of lenders and structured, arranged, administered by one or several commercial banks or investment banks known as lead arrangers. If you remember correct, we learn this in this way. Syndication loan is arranged or maybe organized by a couple of lenders to finance a bigger project, and one or unidentified banks would act as an arranger, subject to arranger fee. What they are trying to do is they structure the credit, they arrange, they administer, right? So when you say it's a bigger project, say about 15 to 20 billion project, for example, say highway, then one single bank cannot finance it individually. Then it seeks the support of a couple of banks who has interest on financing and segregate different component, maybe term loan part, maybe working capital, maybe advisory, maybe import export part, maybe balance sheet financing, right? So like that, so we among us, we segregate our component, and one or two banks who act as an arranger. So they will negotiate with the client to other banks, and you know how this could be done. So structuring, arranging, administrating, even repayment coordination, following up. So everything happened through this kind of arranger. For the activities he undertaken, so we are paying arranger fee. That's what basically the line 1. Then most large projects are funded with syndicated loans by a group of banks in order to mitigate the risk in lending, and also since banks are subject to single borrower exposure limit. Why we need to do this? Based on two identified or two fundamentals. One is because we as banks have single borrower limits. Based on our capital, we can grant 30% as maximum. Beyond that, we can't grant for individual. So if the project is asking the money beyond the 30% of your capital, regulatory, you are unable to finance that. Hence, you need to join with another bank and undertake or provide this type of financing. That's one. Number 2, the risks are high. If the project is very high valued and there is a complexity in the project, then as a single lender, you are unable to get that risk absorbed. Hence, you need a multiple banks where you can share the risk and reward in this transaction. So that's the main two advantage in providing syndicated loans. That's point number 2. Third, project cost is substantial. No one bank would finance. Borrower will definitely have to resort to loan syndication, because now when you see that obvious factor where the cost of the project is higher, bigger, then the borrower has to seek the support of a couple of banks, not a single one. Rate of interest also reasonable, or it basically decided among the consortium of banks. Right now, it's not very high because it's anyway, it's like bigger projects that you need say concessionary rates of financing to do these kind of bigger projects, and it's long term as well. But anyway, it's being negotiated and decided by the consortium of bank. The last one, proper monitoring and financial advisory is made available for borrowers, since the lead bank along with other banks are closely involved in monitoring the performance of the project. Because not only structuring, arranging, administering, monitoring and financial advisory services also available for borrowers, because a couple of banks together involved and they are capable in providing those. On top of that, these projects are large and complex. So you need that type of support as well. So basically, these are the 5 areas that one has to be aware with. So some features, some benefits, how we're going to structure that, what are the do's and don'ts, right? And what are the risks sometimes. So have been mentioned here. So very open question is ask nature and the benefits. So you can include, several points as you learned earlier when providing the answer for this type of a question. Any issue in understanding?
Sir, in these syndicated loans, the security is being kept in one bank, or the collateral part?
Yes. Collateral is common to every bank. It's like concurrent. Like if you say the project assets is common collateral for all banks who provide, say, long-term financing, or maybe working capital related items again is a common, or project contracts is again common. So that's why we have the arranger, and he will coordinate all collateral related, structure related, repayment related, follow-up related activity. Because otherwise, let's say a couple of banks, and then I said I want this, and I have financed this, and this is my own. No, you can't do that, because there may be common project, so being owned by all these stakeholders. And the risk here is, in case if the default, whatever left would be distributed among the all stakeholders who involved. There's a risk for that also, rather than you direct financing.
Okay, sir.
Okay, right. Let's move to the second one. This is all about refinancing lines. Just read through, give me a minute, and just read through the answers B and C. The second one is for refinancing. provided by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka or whatever relevant institution. That is basically those are concessional credit lines coming from Central Bank or Ministry of Financing or maybe World Bank, like multilateral donor agencies. So basically even that routed through CBSL or Ministry of Financing. Specific sectors are focused with specific conditions. Now, when come to refinancing lines, what we observe is they tell us what exactly you need to do. Whether this should focus to rural or urban, SME or micro, or maybe women entrepreneurs or general entrepreneurs, like that. This basically mention what to do. Low interest rate and fixed for entire tenor. That's also another feature, because refinance itself gives to support the the SME, micro, that type of entrepreneurs. Hence it has to come at low interest rates, and when it is fixed, it's easy for them to manage their cash flows and financials. Longer repayment based on the life of assets. It's like a longer repayment period, because refinance organizations, the refinance lines provided by these institutions also gives the freedom to the lenders to repay it back over longer period. Hence, this longer repayment period is also available. Grace periods for payments of capital are given until the commercial operations are fully geared. So grace periods, right? Maybe let's say if you take Agri, 9 months, 1 year grace, or maybe some other, you provide adequate grace period where you're only supposed to pay interest during the period, right? So these are some of the features in refinancing credit line. This has been repeated several times, but you need to remember these type of questions can be again put it into question. Then question number 3. Term loans. Generally talks about term lending or term loans, where you focus on asset financing, like in a company you have some fixed assets being financed by term loans, term financing. Collateral are those assets. Longer tenor or match with the life cycle of the asset. Like if you take, say, machinery and being financed, and then longer tenor, maybe 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, 6 year, like that. So then it is easy for the entrepreneur to repay it, because you use that asset to generate cash flow for the business. Repayment is based projected cash flow, because when you give term loans, we generally assume future cash flows are there to repay your debts rather than balance sheet or maybe existing cash flows, right? Generally, because term loans are bigger amounts, are aimed to finance the assets of the business. Hence, you expect prepayments coming from the future. Grace period also be given for capital payments until commercial operations start. Let's say you bring a machine and then you start up your operation. Maybe initially 5-6 months you are not generating adequate cash flows to repay your debts, or adequate cash flows being not generated for some time because it needs like some period, maybe the formally you start it and then after the pilot operations, right, you need some time to generate adequate cash. So hence that you provide capital grace period, or maybe like grace period basically tells about you need to pay only interest in order to have some adequate the cash flow being generated. So that's been about the term loans or the term financing. Any questions?
So what do you mean by capital grace?
Capital grace is like during the grace period, you only have to pay interest. It's like grace period. In other words, we say capital grace. So until say 6 months or 9 months, you are not supposed to pay the loan capital, only the interest. That's why we say capital grace. Any other questions? This is the working capital financing, but examiner actually, when you say working capital, that here, when you say working capital loan, now this is not a general working capital we are aware with. Working capital loans means that is to take term loans to support working capital. You're getting my point? Now, when you say working capital financing, we presume it's like short-term orientation. No? But here working capital loans means you take medium to term financing to support working capital. So that's why he has given it in that way, and the answer is also in line with that. So careful when you read the question. When you say short-term working capital or maybe working capital financing, yes, then you can assume it both long-term and short-term. But when you say working capital loans, it is mainly to long-term orientation, right? So but the take-home point in this question is, when examiner wanted to talk about working capital loans or working capital financing, two meanings. Working capital loans is basically long-term loans obtained to finance working capital. Working capital financing could be identified as both loans and short-term loans. So keep that in mind when answering the question. But this question is for working capital loans, that is loans to support working capital. Generally focused on permanent working capital requirement in the business. That's what we say working capital loans. Therefore, working capital loans are not considered as revolving, and repayment is extended for more than 1 year but limited to 5 years, right? Not aim to pay within a year. So this is more than 1 year and less than 5 years, like this. So in the medium term loan. So they can purchase goods to support the buffer stock requirement. Because sometimes you can see some clients want financing to store buffer stock. So that buffer stock will support in order to take discounts, in order to satisfy customer needs, in order to support bulk requirements. So that's what the entrepreneurs needs the long-term funding. Beneficial to borrow money from institutions and investing own funds, because if I have money, I can put it to day-to-day working capital and get money generated. If I have money, if I put to long-term working capital, it's not advisable because it gives you the return over a period of time. So instead you use own money, good to get bank money and pay over longer period. Repayment is extended for longer tenor so that comfortably make the repayment from the margin of sales. Because when you say you are trying to pay it over medium to long term, then it could be easy for you. Why? Because you are generating some money over a period of time. So like through profitability, such cash flows could be used to pay off your debts. In short-term financing, what would happen is through short-term realization of the assets, you get the money and settle your working capital funds. But here, over a period of long term, you generate day-to-day cash, and through profitability, through cash flow, you can pay off those debts. Hardly any condition from banks like can revolving working capital credit lines, because here that you are not putting like so many conditions like revolving working capital. In the revolving working capital, you have so many conditions like, cash flows to, maybe obtaining post-dated checks to, sinking funds to, maybe giving the whatever cash to target like intended supplier kind of. So many things are attached in the short-term working capital because it's like cyclically that you are regularly doing. But in this case, it's not. You approved and then you provide financing, and then over a period of time he or she has to pay. The risk here is sometimes when you're trying to do this, there is a misuse of funds also can happen. Diversion of funds also can be expected. How? Because now when you try to finance a long-term working capital, you provide the money mainly to maybe customer's account. So you can't, always, see suppliers and kind of thing, because the customer might be interested getting the money and using the money, get some bulk discount and bulk purchases. So if the customer is not doing the money, using the money for intended purpose, probably you might have some issues in, in utilization of this money. So that is kind of, the thing that we need to keep in mind. Any question? Right. Then we try to do this question. Financial ratio not only helps to analyze the risk of business, also explain the managing efficiency, capacity, borrowing, etc. Here we have given figures for 17 and 18, right? And then revenue, cost of sales, inventory, trade receivables, trade payables also been given. So we have been asked to compute stock retention, debtors retention, creditors retention, operating and cash conversion cycle. So we have done a similar type of question some time back also. Right? Take a few minutes and see whether that you can do this question. Right? So take a few minutes because we have done it 2018 and see whether that you can compute it. Prashant, Udita, Haruka, any difficulty or any issues? I think we have done a couple of questions, but if you do have any issues, please let me know. Or are you getting the same answers? Udita, have you got it? Taruka? Why you are silent, that you are not getting it correctly, or any issues in attempting?
No, sir. I got the answer.
Okay. What about Padmendra? Udita, Prashant? Only thing
Okay.
is that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So basically it's 2018-17. So you need to take averages because it's only for 2018. So when you can compute stock, debtor, creditor periods, then operating cycle is stock plus debtors. Cash conversion is stock plus debtors minus creditors, right? So I mean, since this is a kind of repeat question from previous years, so I think you can get maximum marks for this type of question. So when it is given, right? So just see the answer. Yeah, it was like this one. Average stock, cost of goods sold. Average stock is basically 2017 and 18 divided by 2, and the cost of goods sold into 365, so 98 days. Then debtor to credit sales into 365, it's 65 days. Then average creditors to rate purchases, so you have 77 days. So you have these three, and then operating cycle and the cash conversion cycle. So I don't see it's any difficulty, but only thing is see exactly what examiner has asked. So out of these all questions, this was the easiest question that he has given to us, right? Let's see one question. This is kind of more relevant, so we will discuss these questions also. Question number 4, because I think I'm not sure whether they have given this time about microfinancing also been given, right? So, right. Again, financial literacy, definitions, challenges, right? And the microfinancing interpretations, right? Those are very easy and maybe repetitive questions that we have got. So this again, we can expect this time also microfinancing question, but don't, drop it, because it's easy that, we can get maximum marks. Then here SME part also, they have asked about SMEs are always recognized as the backbone. Why SME be supported with a credit moratorium package? So because recently also still it's in the moratorium period, there are some moratorium concessions. Good to know something about moratorium. So we'll see what the question and answer here. Generally struggle in access to financing. Explain the reasons why SMEs are, in a difficulty to get the financing from the banks. Then funded and unfunded SME investment and working capital requirement. What is the term financing or the infrastructure investment and working capital? Then reasons for failure of SME in terms of SME's perspective. Why the SMEs fail in the first 5 years? Like they can't run more than a longer period, more than 5-10 years as a success stories. So what exactly the reason? So that's what the question is, right? So we'll see answers. Because we have like all very detailed answers here, right? Here, during the economic downturn, SME income was affected and could not survive. As a result of East attack, SMEs were badly affected. Interest rates were high, which is unbearable. Income borrowed substantially, bridged the cash flow gap, but were unable to pay loans and obtain. SMEs are highly sensitive to external vulnerabilities. So management of SME not efficient and effective during trouble period. So this basically very general answer why the moratorium support is required. Because when SMEs are being impacted due to external vulnerabilities, somebody has to come and support. Moratorium is one of them, right? And the other reasons are SMEs taken loan. If no business cash flows are coming, then they are unable to repay the debts timely. Hence, we need to give a support to maybe in terms of interest extensions, writing off some interest, restructures, that kind of a support. So those supports are being offered by these moratorium concessions. So here is the underlying reasons why that moratorium support is required, right? So East attack, moratorium, the interest rates factor, and then keep on continuation of the loans and they are unable to pay, no cash flows, and external vulnerabilities, right? And then they don't have adequate management capability, and also the risk appetite or risk initiativeness is also not very great. And then sometimes, they are taking decisions individually, not, in a part of the bigger management team. So some of those issues created to kind of downfall of the SME businesses. In addition, also you can speak of the demand for their products has come down, and then also the import-export also been impacted. Hence, again, impact on the SME products and services, right? So you can think and write so many answers for this type of question. And generally think what is happening in this environment. Even right now, we see that, tourism moratorium being extended. So this time the question could be tourism moratorium. Like what could be, the impact of tourist entrepreneurs and how they are going to revive, what's the government support for them, like the moratorium that we have spoken of. The government is trying to give some bailout package, still under negotiation. So like that, so think about in that way, more practical scenario, what exactly happening around you. So that might be helpful you to understand the type of question and answer, rather than, generally, yes, general question also, they are like, issues faced by the SMEs. But in practically, in the current context, the examiner has asked some question. Then this is about part 2 of the question. Why they can't, take loans, why they can't, get adequate financial support from the financial institutions, right? So this is basically the issues with SME entrepreneurs which prevent them getting adequate or timely financial from financial institutions. What are those? They are not maintain accurate financial information, or they are not up to date, or they are not paying taxes, they are not being audited. So you can't depend on those financials. That's one of the major problem. Then they don't understand the, the cordial relationship that need to maintain with the banks, right? So sometimes they, take very quick, sudden decisions and move away from one bank to another, maybe due to a disagreement between the branch manager and himself. They don't want to continue with the long-term relationship. They don't see a bigger picture, right? Third, may have the technical but hardly financial management to operate. Like they know how to operate, but they are not very good at financial literacy. Then what happens is, through operational efficiency, they generate, adequate cash and all that, but in absence of financial literacy, they are unable to maintain that financial requirements, levels, right? Those things. Reluctant to unable to provide pragmatic business plan at the time of requesting credit, because now, yes, obviously, since they don't have adequate financial and other skills, they're not very good at provisioning, preparing, presenting business plans. That might impact on them, because now when bank wanted to have an in 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year plan, they are unable to provide. But they say, we have a kind of thing, but the bank cannot depend on most of these their verbal assurances. So could have an impact on financing. Most SMEs have heavily indebted to banks and financial institutions and further borrowed from money lenders. So they sometimes, rather than getting loans from banks, they may have gone and obtained funds from money lenders also. Then highly indebted, and then unable to, service debts timely, right? So even sometimes they might have to sell some of their assets pledged to these money lenders and get the, a benefit out of that. So crib impact, no collaterals, right? Those are some of the issues, inherent issues of SMEs, which prevents them getting timely and adequate financials from the banks. Then third question is asking, what are the facilities on balance sheet or balance sheet facilities for investment purposes and the working capital purposes? Like here, the examiner has given investment facilities, working capital facilities, other facilities. This is, not difficult, but this is very good a summary, because we can expect this in future papers also. Investment is like term loans for land building, plant machinery, vehicle purchasing, even for working capital. So sometimes, right? No, working capital is given differently. Like basically land, building, purchasing, constructing, value addition, purchasing plant and machinery, purchasing vehicles. Those are some of the investment purpose loans. One. Working capital, that there are two parts, that revolving working capital and the permanent working capital. So permanent working capital, we provide working capital loans more than 1 year, less than 5 years also. Revolving, there are so many things which in line with working capital cycle, they provide working capital financing. That's the investment facility and the working capital facilities. Third is basically like other, not basically a long-term and short-term, but there are several facilities like cash management, financial advisory, bank guarantee like off-balance sheet financing, and then payment settlement like LCs, acceptance facilities, also available for SME customers. I think this is the first time that examiner ask about general question about this type of facilities. So it's good to understand what are the investment working capital, other, or maybe term financing, working capital financing, or balance sheet financing. So this is what the examiner wanted to give us or to be ready with. This is like the reason found out through maybe research or maybe different methods why SMEs fail during the initial years. Because maybe you can see most of the SMEs have collapsed, right? And they can't go beyond maybe 3-4 years. Or very rare, some SMEs has moved to next levels. Why? Not investigating and understanding the market. So they don't understand what could be the market dynamics, market challenges. So then they think this is what we have and we need to do this, and this is the market kind of, but actually it's not so. They are unable to provide future business plan, not adequate experience, or they don't plan the adequate capital requirements. They have something, they start it. Halfway, they borrow it from their relatives and they continue. Or maybe go to the money lenders like that. They go to the banks, finance companies. No proper finance planning. Or location issues. Or sourcing of labor, right? Because they start it, or maybe have issues in sourcing proper labor, right labor. So then they are unable to grow it as the business grows because they don't have adequate resources. Try to expand too fast, right? Like trading or things are happening because they try to expand quickly, right? And without adequate capital. Initially, margins are low in most SMEs until they become sustainable. Problems with achieving break-even sales. That's also correct because now they can't, quickly come into the break-even, and they need time. So by that time, then there may be competition, some other external vulnerabilities, and everything will come and impact their business model, business operations. So also they are unable to plan out business versus the the personal expenses. So then there may be some difficulty with the mixing up the personal and business funds. So based on that, so probably they might have some issues. So those are some of the issues we find it as causes for a collapse of those businesses. Right. And then just quickly we see the answer for the microfinancing also. Here, microfinancing is less than 15 and less than 10 numbers because this has been tested in MCQs also, and also it is being in the case study questions as well. Annual turnover less than 15 and the employees less than 10. Who developed National Policy Framework for SME? Ministry of Industries and Commerce, because the Ministry of Industries and Commerce basically has introduced SME definition as well as micro definition. But the part 2 is basically it asks about micro loans. Loans granted for individuals and the group for income generating activities. Right? And again it say excluding all lending facilities granted against the security of mobile or immobile, including gold articles, government securities, time deposits, license bank or license. So basically it talks about we need to disregard this cashback or gold loans or government backed security loans. Like those are not micro loans. Micro loans is basically you provide loans to these micro enterprises and the entrepreneurs to support to income generated activities. Right? But cashback loans are not here. Gold loans are not here. So that's what they wanted to highlight. And these are some challenges. Right? Moral hazard, lack of financial literacy, right? This is again is coming regularly, right? This is financially literacy. This is again a repetition. So basically what I wanted to tell you here is, now when you see development banking past papers, and it's not difficult. It's sometimes a repetition of some of the past papers. Some questions has been, the same question has been repeated as it is, right? And then again, sometimes that Rajini, I think we have not got the marking scheme for the latest paper, because generally they say like normally we are getting like 2 marks, 3 marks. I know this time they have not issues that. Generally they have provided the suggested answers also alone. Nothing on that, but generally the idea is like if you wanted to get like 5 marks, you need at least to provide 4 points. So beyond that you get a better this thing. At least you need to mention 4 lines, separate lines, 4 points in each question, right? So what I was talking to you is like, so always remember to read the questions prior to attempting, select the questions that you think which is more appropriate. Don't start MCQ or break even or project financing or working computation as first question. Start the first question could be SME or microfinancing area, then go to the other areas. And also like if you are planning to answer, always try to do where answer plan. And when you in answer plan, like try to answer selected questions, and if you don't know particular area, then go to a rest of the area and then come back and do, right? So those are some of the tips that I just as finally I am sharing with. I think we have done enough because we have done some past papers, both the NCQs and the rest, and I have shared with you some materials where in more presentation format. I think that is enough for for the 2 months reader. No need to go to the reading materials, because if you start with the past papers and then go back to the presentation slides, and what you could do is like starting from today, get some particular area and cluster it. Let's say SME questions from 2021 January to maybe 3 or 4, 5 years past papers, and get that and then go through all questions and then do at least 1 or 2 write-ups. Then go to the working capital financing, then go to the microfinancing, then get the break-even, then get the SM financing, then get the project financing. So like that, when you try to do that, you will be able to 70 to 80% a success rate where you can cluster most of the question. But then there may be a rest of general question, but don't worry about that. Then go through that separately and then be aware with what kind of the trends. In a present day context, like what you need to know maximum is about general the moratorium requirements. Other than that, I don't think you need to know very much of the rest of the other financial sort of thing. But when you say the moratorium and related thing would be most relevant, right? So that's all about in terms of examination and related stuff. Any questions from you? I'll share my number so that you can have any time call me if you have any questions in past papers. It's my mobile. This is my number. So you can anytime call at office if you are working from home in the mobile at any other time. And I might also have my past papers with me. And then if you do have any questions, and then we can discuss it, any doubts, any questions.
So in the moratorium, can you explain little about moratorium if you do have time?
We have a couple of moratoriums. Moratorium is basically given to client who is unable to pay off their debts due to this, the external, vulnerabilities like Easter Sunday to the COVID impact. And in the moratorium, they are not supposed to pay any capital, any interest. It's a kind of a loan extensions has been granted to these sectors. And then after the moratorium period, so they will be given additional time to repay on the particular interest and capital. That's very simply how the moratorium works. During the moratorium period, they are not required to pay anything, right? But post-moratorium, that particular time period installments will be given as a fresh loan for a longer tenor period. Or else they can, combine the moratorium related loan installment into the main loan, and we can do a restructure for a further period of time. That's about, the general loans under the moratorium. For NPL type of customers, again, we have the option to restructure their loans if they are in a position to pay it after the moratorium, and all legal action has been stopped during the moratorium period. So that's general about the, moratorium concessions for the regular loans and the irregular loans. Any other questions? So then again, I wish everybody all the very best for the exam and exam preparations. So as I was telling you a bit earlier, so anytime that you can speak to me about any doubts, any gray areas, any further clarifications when you undertake past paper questions. So start from last year paper and go back to at least 4 or 5 past papers. Try to cluster it and attempt it, and also you can follow it up or maybe line with whatever lesson materials and see whether that you can do that kind of a job. Right. Again, anything, please, always be in touch, and very safe times ahead. Things again are not very great, but we have to live with whatever given situation. And I wish everybody, very good health, safe times for you and your families. So thank you again. So keep in touch. Okay, all the very best again.